All right, y'all. My brain is absolutely fried. I have been working on my new series up and coming. So I am going to bring y'all back around to identity capture, integrating everything I've been working on the last month and a half. And I'm going to bring you back around to my Mandela. So I started Native American teachings. Oh gosh, I think like 7 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that. So last year, I'm just going to go into a whole different rant than what this video is about, but this is up and coming. So 2025 in March. Was it 2025? It's been a year. So my great aunt passed away on my Native American side of my family, which is my mother's side. So my great aunt, my grandmother, and my grandfather have all passed away. They lived about 15 minutes from where I live now. And it's it really opened up a lot with my genealogy researching and tuning back into my Native American side spiritually, intellectually, from a very heart level. So, anyways, I have finally figured out how to wrap this series back into walking each personality type through my Mandela. So I do have a series on my Mandela, which I'm not going to go too deep into that here. I just am so excited. I actually have my hand done Mandela, which I need to get. It's falling apart if you can't see. But yes, I have this with me, and I've been thinking about how to incorporate my Native American teachings into each personality, and I have finally figured it out. I am freaking battling with AI, trying to get AI to make, if you can see the upper image is what I have so far, trying to get it to match my Mandela and then incorporate just distortion order through the quadrants, and I've got 6 different axes going on here, so I do want to bring that up briefly. So, my new series, I am going to bring this image is not fully done yet. I'm trying to work on the images. They are driving me insane. But I'm trying to get visuals because it helps a lot. So, I've been taking notes. My mind is so scattered. I've been working, I don't know, 14 hours today already. But we are going to be talking about distortion order. So I walked every single personality type through. That's not even the right one I wanted. All right, so I've been walking each personality through. Let me bring it up on my computer, actually, if I can find it. Oh, yeah, it's going to start glitching. I've got a crap ton of things up right now on my computer. And I'm trying to find what I'm looking for. Give me one moment. Is that it? It's not even it. Goodness gracious, where is it? I've got like 20 tabs open. Okay, I can't even find it right now. I'm gonna have to bring it up in my email. I can't actually see what's on OBS for some reason. My internet has been absolutely terrible, so this is probably going to also be a glitchy. It's glitching like crazy. There it is. The more I click around, I've noticed. All right, so I'm going to blow this up for myself. I can't even. All right, so this is not working how I would like it to. I'm going to have to bring my phone closer to myself, and my internet's probably going to crash even harder. All right, so I just want to talk about where we are going. So, yes, this is what I have. Okay, so I've been walking each of the personality types through overall masculine and feminine. So I'm actually going to bring up an archetype on screen. Now, this video, I'm already 5 minutes in and I'm stammering like no other. Okay, so here's an archetype, for example. I'm actually going to. All right, there we go. Okay, so each and every archetype, I've been walking them all through the overall masculine and feminine polarity. You can see that axis 1. And so overall, I created a tier system ranking the 12 personality types from the most masculine to the most feminine under pressure. So, the next series I did in my cognitive moral series, I walked each personality type through. I combined moral load bearing with the inner and outer masculine and feminine quadrants. So, I'm trying to get all these foundational videos out, and I know they're extremely dense. You have to be kind of advanced to understand what the heck is going on. I'm going to hammer this out for another month and a half foundationally. These videos are going to be extremely dense and in-depth, and then I'm going to try to tune it back a little bit, kind of get into the more mainstream. But anyway, so we went over the overall masculine and feminine for each archetype, and then we talked about moral load bearing. I broke that down into tiers. So primary load bearers is like Capricorn and Scorpio, for example. And that deals with the nervous system under pressure, what the archetypes can handle based on their nervous system. And then we broke down the inner and outer masculine and feminine quadrants, axis 3, so how energy expresses and lands. Moral load bearing is where consequence lands. Polarity overall is direction of force and containment. So the inner and outer masculine and feminine aligns with the psychological arena people. They would understand that better than the astrological people. So that key card in the bottom corner is the ego, and it's broken down astro-psychologically into 4 quadrants. So astrologically, you have the ruler, exaltation, left field, and fall. Psychologically, you have the hero, parent, child, and inferior cognitive functions. I have taken this entire system and now I've already broken down each archetype into inner and outer masculine and feminine containment in their nervous system that deals with their developmental arc throughout their life. Psychologically, you say the hero is developed between the ages of 1 and 12, parent 12 through 20, child 20 to 30. Inferior, you start integrating the inferior at the age of 35 or so. And so I have updated my key cards. Now you can see the IF, OF, IM, and OM, inner feminine, inner masculine, outer masculine. So that is all done. Now, this new series I'm getting ready to drop, I am incorporating, it's called Bite. I think it was Stephen Hansen. I've got so many notes that I've been taking. I think it was Stephen Hansen who created that. So that goes into entry point of how your identity is captured. So that's behavior, B, I, information, T, thought, and E, emotion. So I'm going to be describing identity capture. We are no longer talking about distortion through childhood development, through your stages, adolescence, adulthood, and beyond. We are now going into identity capture. So I've already explained how your identity is developed over time and how it gets distorted that way and what the healthy order is. Now we're going into when you're older. It varies. You normally don't start thinking about this until you're older. So identity capture can happen at all ages, but it's more thought of when you're older. All right, so we're going to go through behavior, information, thought, and emotion, how your identity is distorted and captured. Now, I'm going to be talking about the quadrants through that lens, through distortion, through identity capture. Now, the spiritual layer is amazing. So, I'm going to be talking about oppression, obsession, and possession. So, that is the depth at which your identity is captured. And so, there's a depth of capture: light, heavy, severe, and extreme. And then the mandala is talking about how to get out of identity capture. So there is a tier model. The tier model this time around in this new series will be breaking down each personality type based on how they are captured. So tier 1 is identity dissolution, tier 2 is behavioral hijack, tier 3 is internal collapse, and tier 4 is identity lock. So each archetype has weaknesses within overall how their identity gets captured, as well as within the inner and outer masculine and feminine quadrants, as well as depending on your age. So there is a descent, and then there is so there's descending, and then you're ascending, and the exit strategy is through the mandala. So distortion order, identity capture. We've got a tier system going on, a ranking system. I'm going to be talking a lot about the nervous system through the quadrants, inner and outer masculine and feminine. Bites, how identity capture enters your system, through which function, and bringing it back into the spiritual lens through the mandala, through oppression, obsession, and total identity capture. All right, so yes, 12 minutes in, and that's where my channel is going for the next month or so. I'm extremely excited. So anyways, it's a lot of fine tuning. It's a lot of work. So this video specifically is about, I want to talk about Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces through their, talking about Jupiter and Mercury. So one of my first videos, one of my first master ebooks through Astro-Psychology lens, I wrote on Gemini. I am a Pisces ego, Aquarian Mercury, and 85% Capricorn or ISTJ, Aries rising, Capricorn moon, Neptune, Uranus, midheaven, etc. So I'm an Aries rising. That means all of my houses are in the correct zodiac sign in astrology. So I do have 10th house Capricorn moon, Aquarius, Mercury in the 11th house, Pisces, Venus, and Sun in the 12th house. North node is also in Pisces. So it's a lot. I've been working on this for over a decade. I did these key cards 8-9 years ago. And so the last couple of months, I would say 9 months, I've been hammering out some more foundational information. So anyways, I recently had a conversation with somebody that is unfortunately going through a divorce. I cannot stand hearing that. It's terrible to hear. But we got onto the topic of Sagittarius. So I used to do a lot of birth charts, and I would do relationship charts. I would do charts for, children. So parenting, you can understand your child better. Personal charts, relationship charts, you name it. I've done a couple hundred charts. So it's been a while since I've talked to anyone. I'm kind of like in my own realm, developing my systems out even further. I've been hammering on this channel, getting presentations out there, but the topic came up about Sagittarius. I have personally been frustrated by Gemini. I've been battling with a Gemini in court for the last, I don't know, 4 years. It is an insane battle. I am heavily invested in understanding people's egos and Mercuries through their communication. It's very fascinating for me. So I'm going to get into my intro for this video. So before we get into this, I need to set the frame. My computer is going to crash and burn. So before we get into this, I need to set the frame correctly. Actually, you know what? Give me one moment. I'm going to close down some things because I'm not going to be bringing those back up. And that might help my computer. Oh, I need to put this up here so I get better internet. Exit some things out. That might help. Okay. All right, so that might help a little bit. I do apologize. I need to get the internet. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, farm kid. I do not have internet out here or anywhere around my house. I'm in an industrial farm shed, and it is what it is. And my computer is over a decade old. So eventually we'll get there. So I do apologize for all of the glitching. It's unfortunate. All right. So there comes a point where you realize the conversation is no longer happening on the surface. You're not just speaking to a person anymore. You're speaking to the exact layer their system goes to when it feels pressure. The words still sound normal. The tone still sounds familiar, but nothing actually lands. Everything gets moved into morality, into emotion, into identity, into abstraction, into interpretation. And the harder you try to clarify the point, the further the point disappears. That is not simple miscommunication. That is structural distortion. That is what happens when a nervous system stops communicating to connect and starts communicating to stabilize itself. So I'm going to have to move over, I think. Okay, so you can see me a little bit better. So this Mercury video. So we're talking about Mercury and Jupiter, and I love having my key cards up here because you can see in what quadrant it is. According to astrology, psychology, and the inner and outer masculine and feminine in the nervous system. So this Mercury video is about that shift. It is about what happens when language stops carrying reality and starts protecting identity, emotion, superiority, self-image, accumulated resentment, or internal structure. It is about why Sagittarius turns truth into moral positioning, why Gemini moves the definition before accountability lands, why Pisces shifts the conversation into emotional reality. In the next video, I'm going to get into Virgo, Leo, and Aquarius. Not this video, I do not have enough time. So the next video, we will talk about why Virgo stores imbalance until it finally spills out, why Leo fuses feedback with identity, and why Aquarius explains the system while the human moment disappears underneath. So these are not random speech habits. These are protective structures. I feel like I'm just not in screen enough. All right. So these are not random speech habits. These are protective structures. And once you see them, you stop trying to solve the wrong problem. So I forgot totally to introduce myself. Heather here with Underwater Panther. Underwater Panther exists exactly there, and the layer most people skip, not at the level of words alone, but at the level of what words are doing underneath the words, where distortion is not absent truth. So I do want to pause for one brief moment. Underwater Panther is a Native American myth. It is the creature that travels between all realms. So I finally feel like I am truly embodying my Underwater Panther brand. I came up with that brand 10 years ago, and I'm just now really truly feeling like I am finally getting to the place that I have foreseen myself for years and years and years. So this is a real grind. I'm going to continue on, but I'm finally feeling it and I love it. All right, so underwater Panther exists where distortion is not about absent truth, but truth. Okay, so not at the level of words alone, but at the level of what words are doing underneath the words. Where distortion is not absent truth, but truth bent around fear, instability, pressure, and self protection. It moves into that space with precision, not noise, quietly, cleanly, without wasted force. Because when communication breaks, the issue is usually not vocabulary. It is where the system moved the conversation to survive. And if you can see that, you can stop getting pulled into the wrong frame and start bringing reality back into the room. Underwater Panther is where communication distortion is exposed and truth is rebuilt. All right, so we're talking about Mercury distortion. This is going to drive me insane. Why communication breaks across archetypes. So before we get into this, I need to reframe how you think about communication because most people are still looking at communication from the surface. They think communication is about words, tone, timing, delivery, social skill, maybe emotional intelligence, maybe maturity. And those things matter, but they are not the actual core of what is happening when communication breaks down. Communication is where your system goes when it is under pressure. It is where your mind, your nervous system, your identity, and your defense structure all reveal themselves at once. So, if you do not understand where a person's system stabilizes when tension enters the room, you will keep trying to fix conversations that were never happening on the same level to begin with. So, what you are about to see is not just personality in the shallow sense. It is not stereotypes. It is not this sign always does this content. It is structure. It is what happens when cognition, meaning, identity, and emotional reality all collide without enough anchoring to keep them clean. More specifically, this is what happens when Mercury, which rules processing, language, cognition, articulation, interpretation, and exchange, gets distorted by Jupiter, by Neptune, by emotional absorption, by identity threats, by structural overreach, or by delayed containment. And once you see that clearly, you're not going to be able to unsee it because suddenly conversations that used to feel random start organizing themselves into patterns. Every archetype distorts communication at the exact point their system loses stability. Not randomly, not vaguely, not because they are just being difficult. Structurally, this is the key. When pressure enters, people do not merely respond, they stabilize. They reach for the layer of the psyche that helps them regain control, coherence, or safety. And they stabilize through their strongest quadrant, their dominant function, and their planetary support. That means that when someone is talking to you under pressure, they are often doing more than giving you information. They are regulating themselves through conversation. They're using the interaction to try to regain footing. And that is why one person turns everything into logic, another turns everything into emotion, another turns everything into moral framing, another turns everything into identity, another turns everything into accumulated resentment, and another turns everything into interpretation. So it looks like miscommunication from the outside is often two different stabilization systems trying to control the same conversation. The clearest place to begin is with Mercury-Jupiter triad. I'm sorry, I'm just glitching. Because this is one of the most elegant distortion patterns in the entire framework. Gemini, ENTJ, Pisces, INFJ, and Sagittarius ISTP are all dealing with the same axis, but they missequence it differently. Mercury governs information, processing, cognition, language, articulation, precision, and movement of thought. Jupiter governs meaning, belief, expansion, philosophy, moral framing, scale, truth-seeking, and significance. So with Mercury and Jupiter, when they are out of sequence, you get a person who can move meaning faster than they can stabilize truth. And that is where the loop begins. So Gemini starts with information and cannot fully land on meaning. Pisces starts with meaning and cannot cleanly separate into clarity. Sagittarius tests truth through experience, but only fully understands after impact has already happened. So the distortion looks different in each one, but the root problem is related. Gemini gets lost in possibilities. Pisces gets lost in feeling and meaning. Sagittarius gets lost in experience and correction. And all three miss the same thing in the moment: stable anchoring of truth, identity, and accountability while the conversation is happening. So let's start with Sagittarius, because this is one people often feel immediately, even if they don't have language for it yet. Sagittarius does not struggle with honesty. They are a fire sign and they are very blunt about their feelings and thoughts. Mostly feelings, but also thoughts. So, where was Sagittarius struggles with how truth is delivered and held under relational pressure. All right, so this is not a system that is fundamentally afraid of truth, but they do struggle with how truth is delivered and held under relational pressure. This is a very different problem. Internally, Sagittarius is running a strong truth verification system. It is checking whether something holds up. It is asking whether something survives reality. It does not trust surface feelings the way Pisces might, and it does not trust endless interpretive movement the way Gemini might. Sagittarius wants what holds. The problem is that once Sagittarius has internally organized itself around what it believes is true, it can begin speaking from a position of internal certainty without enough relational containment around that truth. All right, so I'm really having an insane time with glitching. I'm going to make Sagittarius bigger. And I am going to also bring up the key card and go over briefly, very briefly, what Sagittarius's 4 quadrants are representing. So give me one moment. I'm going to get there. Okay, Sag, where are you? There you are. All right, so just in case you missed the other video, so I have broken this down in depth, but I do like to recap. Okay. So hopefully, okay, let me see where I'm at here. Okay, so Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is, they have a trajectory survival order. So Sagittarius regulates through internal truth testing. So that is TI and SE, definitely TI and SE. Real world action, experimental correction, and delayed relational awareness. So FE inferior trips them up. Sagittarius does not begin with emotion or external processing. Sagittarius begins with internal logic and then tests reality through action. So introverted thinking, hero, and extroverted sensing parent. Now, I do want to point something out, because Pisces is literally the external version of Sagittarius. If you look here, it's really fascinating. They both actually have Jupiter ruling and Mercury in left field. but it expresses differently because of their temperaments, and we have SE and FE flip-flopped. So, Pisces and Sagittarius are both absolute hot messes in different ways. I wanted to bring that up because I think it's hilarious every single time. All right, so inner masculine, we have TI, Hero, and Jupiter. So this quadrant represents internal truth verification, belief formation, and logical independence. Sagittarius begins in the inner masculine. It does not ask how something feels or how it is being perceived. It asks whether it holds up. Sagittarius builds into internal truth first. This creates a system that is grounded in self-referenced logic and belief. Sagittarius does not rely heavily on external validation. They test internally, then move outward. So function and planet breakdown in this quadrant. TI Hero builds internal logic, coherence, and truth frameworks. It asks, does this actually make sense? Jupiter ruling expands belief, truth-seeking, and philosophical meaning. Ask, what is universally true here? Sagittarius trusts what holds up internally. Distortion point, truth is formed before relational input. This creates internal certainty without external calibration. Sagittarius does not lack truth, they can lack relational context. So outer masculine, we have SE parent, and I didn't write that in there. We have SE parent, South Node. I'm actually gonna have to South Node, and Chiron. All right, so this quadrant represents action, real-world testing, and experiential verification. So after forming internal truth, Sagittarius acts. They do not sit in theory, they test reality directly. This is where Sagittarius learns through consequence. They have to make the same mistake over and over and over. They have a very hard time learning about consequences. They have a hard time looking further in the future. They live in the moment. So they are definitely not thinking about the future. They live in, what do you call that? Oh, God, instant gratification. Golly. All right, so function and planet breakdown. SE parent engages reality through action and experience. Ask, what happens if I test this? Sagittarius validates truth through action. So they are tinkerers, they are gearheads, they are actually mechanically inclined. They love hands-on, they're kind of adrenaline junkies. They go out there and do the thing. So Sagittarius validates truth through action. Distortion point. Action comes before full awareness. Experience replaces foresight. Sagittarius learns after impact, if at all. They're extremely witty, intellectual. They have insane mental energy and insane physical energy. I gotta give that to them. All right, so then we move into inner feminine. We have NI child and Mercury in left field. Introverted intuition child. So this is the pattern recognition, delayed insight, and trajectory awareness quadrant. Sagittarius understands patterns after experience. It does not anticipate early, it realizes later. So NI child sees patterns and trajectories, ask, what does this lead to? Mercury in left field processes insight after action, adds delayed articulation and understanding. Sagittarius sees clearly in hindsight. Distortion point, delayed pattern awareness creates repeated cycles. They have to learn life the hard way over and over and over. All right, outer feminine, FE inferior, and we have, what is that? North node in fall and Sirius in fall. So this quadrant represents relational awareness, emotional attunement. This is their weakest quadrant. The hero and parent are more conscious, and the child and inferior are more unconscious overall. All right, so this is the weakest layer. Sagittarius does not naturally prioritize emotional regulation or relational containment. Distortion point. Truth is delivered without tracking impact. Distortion order. So inner masculine, inner feminine, outer feminine. They analyze, act, realize, and then connect last. Sagittarius defines truth, tests it, understands later, and connects last. What others experience? You're right, but you missed how that landed. You act first and understand later. You correct things after they break. And you don't consider people until after. Sagittarius feels clear, direct, and truth oriented, but can feel uncontained relationally. So they have very low relational attunement, FYI. And they are pragmatic, they make decisions, they're freedom based, they are certainly all about their freedom of movement, decision making, etc. All right, so that is Sagittarius overall. All right, so back into what we were saying. And because all of that, Sagittarius often does not confront directly in the way people assume. This is actually where a lot of people misread it. People think Sagittarius is always blunt, always straightforward, always just saying it to your face. Sometimes, yes, but not always. In distortion, Sagittarius often speaks through principles, philosophy, generalized truth is a huge one. Growth language, moral language, life advice. On their soapbox, preaching. Sagittarius loves to preach, make rules that they do not follow. They will make rules for you, but they're not going to follow it. All right. So instead of saying you're avoiding responsibility, they say something like, people who don't take accountability don't grow. Or aren't we supposed to improve every day? Or at some point, people have to want better for themselves. On the surface, that sounds broad, maybe even wise. So they morally structure things when they are talking. So they take it broad, like a broad, oh, I'm just trying to improve every day. But really, it's a direct attack on you. It's hard to explain. I'm still like feathering this out. But man, once you understand their broad moral framing strokes to avoid actual personal accountability, they back you into a corner. It's absolutely wild. All right, so on the surface, that sounds broad, maybe even wise. But structurally, what is happening is not neutral. A personal judgment is being universalized. A targeted assessment is being wrapped in a moral frame that sounds objective. This is why it feels passive aggressive to the person receiving it. It creates pressure without ownership. That the statement is not cleanly personal enough to challenge directly without risk, but it is not actually general either. It is pointed, it is evaluative, it is moral. And that is where the trap forms, because now if you ignore it, you silently accept the implication. If you respond directly, you suddenly look defensive inside a frame that was presented as universal truth. And then as Sagittarius is pushed, the frame often shifts. I didn't say that. You're taking it personally. I was just speaking generally. This is the flip. Moral authority becomes victim position. And what you feel on the receiving end is not just disagreement. You feel cornered, judged, and then blamed for reacting to the pressure that was put on you. The issue is not truth. The issue is truth without ownership. I'm going to break these down, these three personality types down, like I just did with Sagittarius, and then as much time as I'm allowed, I've got about 40 minutes, I'm going to keep wrapping around. I've got so many notes. I've got a lot I want to say, but I just wanted to set the foundation really quickly. So I will flesh that out more later on. All right, so now I'm going to move on to Gemini. And go over the briefing on Gemini, and then we will come back around and break them down even deeper. Okay. So Gemini. All right, so Gemini does something completely different. Gemini does not usually trap through authority. Gemini traps through movement language. Actually, I'm going to move this up. It might drive me nuts. Okay, so Gemini traps through movement language. Gemini is processing in real time, talking, organizing, adjusting, reframing, recontextualizing, reinterpreting, linking, and pivoting. This is what makes Gemini brilliant in a live environment. Gemini can hold multiple interpretations at once. They can track nuance. So Gemini has Mercury in the ruling position and Jupiter in left field. So that's opposite of Pisces and Sagittarius. So Gemini can move quickly. They can re-articulate something from 5 angles in the span of 30 seconds. But that same cognitive agility becomes distortion when there's no stable internal anchor, forcing one definition to hold long enough for accountability to land. So Gemini says things like, "That's not what I mean. You misunderstood me. That's not what I was saying." Or "That's not what I meant in the context." And technically, Gemini is not always lying when they do that. That is important. Gemini often really is still processing. Gemini really can see how one phrase could mean multiple things depending on which angle you're viewing it from. The problem is not presence of nuance. The problem is that meaning keeps shifting before anything stabilizes. So the conversation moves, but nothing lands. And this creates Gemini's double blind. If you hold Gemini to the original point, Gemini can reinterpret it. If you follow the reinterpretation, the original point disappears. So now you are no longer having one conversation. You are chasing a moving target through language. This is why being on the receiving end of Gemini distortion often feels destabilizing. You start to feel like you can't pin anything down. Every time you respond, the meaning changes slightly. Every time you think you've landed on the point has already evolved into something else. Internally, Gemini isn't using thinking. Gemini isn't usually thinking, excuse me. Gemini is always thinking. Okay, all right. I like for real. I'm an intellectual myself, Aquarian INTJ mind. We're always thinking. I can promise you that it's not boring in our minds. Okay, so Gemini isn't usually thinking, I'm avoiding accountability. Gemini is thinking, I'm still processing, or that's not full meaning, or there's more nuance here. But externally, the effect is the same. Movement replaces commitment, processing replaces choosing. All right, so I'm going to go through the quadrants very briefly. All right, so Gemini is the cognitive execution survival order, talking about their developmental order through their lifetime. So they engage, pattern, explore, and then work on their values late. Geminis regulate through external processing, communication, live organization, and movement between ideas. Gemini does not begin by asking what something means internally. They begin by engaging reality outwardly and organizing it in real time. They speak first, structures while moving, and discovers themselves through interaction before identity is fully formed. So the outer masculine quadrant, we have extroverted thinking hero and Mercury ruling. This quadrant represents execution, communication, and environmental organization. Gemini begins in outer masculine. This is the most important thing to understand first because Gemini does not enter reality through quiet observation, internal values, or emotional containment. So if you see Pisces and Sagittarius, they begin, I'm gonna have to move this down. Oh, okay. So they begin internally. Gosh darn it, that's not the one I wanted to click on. OBS needs to fix this every single time. All right, so I'm just gonna cover myself. So Pisces and I hero and Sagittarius TI hero. So Pisces and Sagittarius begin internally. Inner masculine and inner feminine. Now, Gemini, on the other hand, does not. So Gemini begins, if I can get the right thing here, externally. Okay, so Gemini does not enter reality through quiet observation, internal values, or emotional containment. Gemini enters through action, communication, and external processing. They think out loud, they organize while speaking, they build temporary coherence through movement. Gemini does not wait to fully understand reality before engaging it. Gemini engages reality in order to understand it. Darn it. My earbud's dying. I need music. All right, so this is what makes Gemini fast. Not just intellectually fast, but structurally fast in real time. I might have to push play again. Okay, there we go. All right, so... Oh, man, I've got to switch my... I made it so when I talk, that's gonna suck. I gotta fix this real quick because I'm not gonna be able to talk and do this. How do I do this? Oh. I don't know how to search that. Apple iPod? Or what do you call these? What do you call these? AirPod. Is that what they're called? Why am I having I'm having a total brain fart. Great. I change it so when I'm talking I can't hear. Oh well. Yeah, it's gonna be a problem. Oh well. All right, we gotta keep rolling here. I don't have enough time for this. All right, so Gemini builds temporary coherence through movement. They organize while speaking, through moving. Gemini does not wait to fully understand reality before engaging it. Gemini engages reality in order to fully understand it. So this is what makes Gemini fast, not just intellectually fast, but structurally fast in real time. Gemini can enter a conversation, identify moving parts quickly, reorganize information on the fly, and keep multiple ideas in motion at once. Gemini is one of the most externally responsive archetypes in the system because it is not building from stillness. Gemini is building from engagement. All right, so function and planet breakdown for outer masculine. TE hero organizes reality into workable systems, prioritizes execution, structure, responsiveness, and utility. Ask, what do I do with this right now? TE gives Gemini live ordering capacity. Gemini does not want information sitting still. Gemini wants it moving, structured, and usable. So Mercury governs communication, language, processing speed, and cognitive exchange, enhances mental agility, verbal responsiveness, and rapid translation. Ask, how do I articulate and connect this in real time? Mercury makes Gemini fast, verbal, adaptive, and externally cognitively fluid. Gemini engages reality through speech, movement, and external processing. Gemini does not build clarity first and then act. Gemini acts in order to build clarity. Distortion point, because Gemini begins in outer masculine, they can confuse processing with decision. They can organize in real time without ever anchoring into a true internal stance. Movement creates temporary coherence, but not necessarily stable identity. This is where over-processing replaces selecting and activity replaces commitment. Gemini can look decisive because they act and are very active, but activity is not always direction. So then we have the inner feminine, and I parent and north node and exaltation. This quadrant represents internal patterning, trajectory awareness, and hidden direction tracking. Once Gemini has engaged reality, they turn inward, not to stabilize emotionally, but to track where everything is going. This is the hidden layer beneath the movement. Gemini is not just reacting randomly, they are also tracking trajectory beneath emotion. They see patterns across events, recognizes direction underneath scattered inputs, and begins understanding how one thing leads to another. But because this comes after engagement instead of before it, the patterning is layered on top of constant external motion. So instead of reducing options, they can multiply them. Gemini sees not one outcome, but many. Not one path, but several. And this is where hesitation begins, not because Gemini is slow, but because it can see too many possible directions at once. So, NI parent perceives trajectories, implications, hidden direction, and long term pattern flow. Ask, where is this going beneath the movement, excuse me. NI gives Gemini its hidden strategic layer. Gemini is not just reacting, they are mapping. North node represents pointing towards developmental direction, future alignment, and where the system is meant to grow. Adds pressure towards meaning, path, and future orientation. I just got a text. All right. Sweet good morning text. I haven't even slept yet. Don't tell anyone. I literally worked 15-hour days almost. It is absolutely insane. I get like 5 hours of sleep a night. Anyways, I am like working 3 jobs. It's insane. All right. So, talking about movement. All right. So, anyways, North node adds pressure towards meaning, path, and future orientation. North node gives Gemini a subtle pull towards deeper trajectory and purpose, even when the surface system is scattered. Gemini tracks direction beneath movement. Gemini does not just process events, they begin seeing how events connect. Distortion point, because Gemini sees multiple possible futures at once, they can remain an internal pattern tracking too long after external engagement. This creates over patterning, hesitation, and difficulty committing to one path. Gemini is not confused by lack of options, they are burdened by excess options. I'm going to have to speed this up. I'm not going to have enough time. So, the outer feminine, SE child, and Jupiter in left field is the experimental engagement, expansion through action, and environmental testing quadrant. After engaging in patterning, Gemini moves back outward again, but this time through exploration. This is where they test reality through experience. They try things, enter spaces, samples possibilities, and expands through contact. Gemini does not merely think about reality, they experiment with it. This gives Gemini tremendous adaptability. They can move between people, settings, ideas, and opportunities with ease. They can learn quickly through exposure. They can gather data through lived interaction. This is why Gemini often appears versatile, socially fluid, and mentally expansive. They do not need one lane to function because they can engage in many. So, SE represents engaging through direct experience, immediacy, novelty, and contact with the external world. Ask, what happens if I just try this? SE gives Gemini experimentation, spontaneity, and real world sampling. Jupiter in left field expands experience, possibility, movement, and breadth, adds optimism, openness, exploration, and appetite for more. Jupiter gives Gemini expansive, curious, and willing to test multiple realities. So the distortion here, because this exploration comes before stable identity, Gemini can expand without consolidating. They can become overstimulated, scattered, impulsive, and inconsistent in follow through. The system keeps moving, but nothing locks into selfhood. And then we have inner masculine with FI inferior and south node. This quadrant represents internal values, identity grounding, and moral stance formation. This is the final and weakest layer in Gemini. It is their core and stability of the entire system. Gemini does not define themselves first, they define themselves last. Internal values, stable identity, and clear personal stance are delayed. This means Gemini can understand many systems, many perspectives, many people, and many arguments without having a strong internal anchor of their own. All right, so I'm not going to go through all of this. I just do not have time. So, what others experience, you say a lot, but I don't know where you actually stand. You adapt to everything, but I can't tell what's really you. You're always moving, but I don't know what you're building. You understand every side, but you don't choose one. So, Gemini always is on the fence. All right, so I'm going to set myself up for Pisces. I don't think I'm going to be able to get through all of this. I have so much I want to say. All right, so I'm going to take, oh, whoops, actually. Yeah, I'm just going to take that down. Not going to have enough time. All right, so I've got like 4 different nodes I'm toggling. All right, so now we're gonna get into Pisces. This is like foundational. I'm not even into the fun part yet. All right, so Pisces goes even deeper than either of those. Pisces does not usually argue through principle like Sagittarius, and Pisces does not usually destabilize through interpretive movement like Gemini. Pisces shifts the conversation into emotional reality. Pisces is not necessarily anchoring in what happened, what was said, or what was intended. Pisces is anchoring in what it felt like internally. That is the center of gravity. So you may say, that's not what I meant, and Pisces hears, I feel dismissed. Then Pisces responds to the feeling, not the statement. This is the first break point. To you, the conversation is about reality, sequence, event, meaning, and clarification. To Pisces, the conversation is about emotional impact. What happened and how it felt are not fully separate layers in the unintegrated Pisces system. They merge. This means the emotional field becomes the reference point. So the conversation becomes issue, feeling, your adjustment to their feeling, disappearance of the issue, repetition later. This is the loop. If you push the issue, you become harsh. If you soften fully, the issue vanishes. And this is why the person on the receiving end feels like, I brought up something real and now I'm managing your emotions instead. Internally, Pisces is not usually thinking, I am deflecting. Pisces is overwhelmed. Pisces is trying to stabilize an emotional field that suddenly feels unsafe. That matters because it explains why cold logic escalates the problem, but it does not erase the distortion. The distortion is that emotional reality starts replacing shared reality. The internal feeling becomes the point. The original event loses center. This is why Pisces can create a situation where if you stay grounded in facts, you look cold. But if you move fully into compassion, you lose the structure of the conversation. The emotional field becomes the whole frame. So I'm not going to go through Virgo, Leo, or Aquarius right now. All right, so I'm not going to go through, I'm going to make that into a different video. I wanted to group these together. All right, so I'm going to go through Pisces real quick. So Pisces has the dissolution survival order. The inner feminine, you have introverted intuition hero, Neptune and Jupiter. This is the symbolic perception and collective absorption and boundary dissolution, meaning immersion. Pisces does not meet the world through events, they meet it through meaning fields. Oh, okay, I'm not even in the right section. Excuse me. All right, so Pisces absorbs, harmonizes, interprets, and then acts late. So they regulate through emotional absorption, energetic attunement, internal meaning making, and delayed external action. Pisces does not begin by asking what happens externally or how to organize reality. They begin by entering the emotional field, absorbing it, and experiencing reality internally before separating from it. So the inner feminine, we have NI, introverted intuition, hero, Neptune. Excuse me, geez, Jupiter and Neptune ruling. So this is the absorption, meaning formation, and emotional spiritual immersion. Pisces begins in inner feminine. This is the most important thing to understand first because Pisces does not enter reality through action, structure, or external organization. They enter through feeling, absorption, and internal experience. Pisces does not stand outside of reality and observe it. They merge with it. This is what makes Pisces deep. Not just emotionally deep, but structurally immersive. It can feel environments, people, and undercurrents without needing explicit explanation. Pisces processes reality through internal resonance. They experience first, then understand. All right, so I don't know why that's there. NI, inner feminine. So NI perceives meaning, symbolism, emotional patterns, and internal associations. Ask, what does this mean beneath what's happening? This gives Pisces internal depth, intuitive interpretation, and emotional pattern recognition. Neptune represents dissolving boundaries, merging internal and external reality, amplifies emotional and symbolic perception. Ask, what does this feel like at a deeper level? Neptune makes Pisces permeable, imaginative, and highly sensitive to emotional fields. Jupiter expands meaning, belief, and internal experience, adds scale, significance, and emotional magnitude. Jupiter amplifies the importance of what Pisces feels and interprets. Pisces absorbs reality before defining it. So the distortion point, because Pisces begins in absorption, they can confuse internal emotional reality with external factual reality. Pisces may not separate what happens from how they feel. Meaning expands before clarity forms. This is where emotional override replaces structural grounding. Pisces does not lack awareness, they struggle with separation. Okay, now we have outer feminine with extroverted feeling parent in Venus and exaltation. This is the relational attunement, emotional regulation, and harmony maintenance quadrant. After absorbing reality internally, Pisces moves outward to regulate the emotional field. Pisces reads others, softens environments, maintains connection, and attempts to harmonize tension. Pisces does not confront first, they adjust. They are a mutable sign as well as that. Actually, they are all mutable signs. They are adaptable and changeable to their temperament. Pisces, emotions and feelings. Sagittarius, fire, seeing and feeling, their perception and how they feel. They're expressive about it. Gemini, the air with their thinking and communication. Gemini is adaptable and changeable to others' thinking and communication. Pisces is adaptable to others' emotions and feelings. And Sagittarius is adaptable to others' perceptions and feelings. But they're very expressive with their own, but they're riding that wave with other people. So they talk to talk about it. It's not necessarily grounded. So Pisces isn't grounded in their own emotions and feelings. Sagittarius is not exactly grounded in their own perceptions. They like broadly become a philosophical preacher that preaches everyone to do what they don't do. Gemini, they're just like reframing, recontextualizing, just going all over the place just to talk. It's just hilarious. Okay, so anyways, back to where we were. After absorbing reality internally, Pisces moves outward to regulate the emotional field. Pisces reads others, softens environment. So I did say it. This is where Pisces becomes relationally adaptive. Pisces can meet others emotionally, sense discomfort quickly, and shift their own behavior to maintain peace. Pisces often prioritizes connection over clarity. So, FE parent tracks emotional dynamics between people. Ask, how is everyone feeling right now? FE gives Pisces relational awareness and the ability to regulate emotional environments. Venus enhances harmony, connection, softness, and relational prioritization, adds desire for peace, beauty, and emotional alignment. Venus strengthens Pisces' inclination towards connection over conflict. Pisces regulates relationships through emotional attunement. Distortion point, because harmony is prioritized, Pisces may avoid direct confrontation or delay addressing issues. Pisces may absorb and soften instead of separating and defining. Emotional peace replaces structural truth. Pisces can maintain connection at the cost of clarity. Then we move on to the inner masculine with introverted thinking, child, and Mercury in fall. All right, so this is the internal analysis, private reasoning, and delayed clarity quadrant. After absorbing and harmonizing, Pisces turns inward again, this time to make sense of what they experienced. But this process is internal and delayed. Pisces does not immediately articulate clear structure or logic externally, they process it privately. This is where Pisces understands what happened, but often after the moment has passed. Pisces gains insight through reflection, not immediacy. So introverted thinking, TI, builds internal logic, structure, and understanding. Ask what actually makes sense here. TI gives Pisces the ability to eventually form clarity, but internally first. Okay, so Mercury represents communication, articulation, and cognitive precision. So they are not primary. Clarity is delayed, softened, or difficult to externalize. Mercury here. Sorry. Mercury here does not lead, it follows. Pisces understands reality after feeling it. Distortion point. Because clarity comes late and internally, Pisces may struggle to articulate reality in real time. Pisces may default to emotional expression instead of structured communication. Understanding exists, but it is not always accessible when needed. Pisces does not lack intelligence, they lack immediate articulation under pressure. So outer masculine, we have SE inferior and Earth in fall. So this quadrant represents action, boundary enforcement, and external execution late. This is the final and weakest layer in Pisces. Direct action, confrontation, and boundary enforcement come last. Pisces does not naturally push outward. Pisces yields, absorbs, and processes before acting. When action finally occurs, it is often reactive, delayed, or overwhelming. All right, so SE inferior engages reality directly through action, confrontation, and physical presence. Ask what needs to be done right now. SE is underdeveloped, making action inconsistent or avoided. Pisces acts last. Distortion point. Because action is delayed, Pisces can allow situations to build pressure before responding. When they do act, they may be reactive, emotional, or abrupt. Boundaries are not set early, so they collapse late. Door slam. Pisces does not struggle with caring, they struggle with enforcing boundaries. Hello. All right, so distortion, order, inner feminine, inner masculine, outer masculine. Absorb, harmonize, interpret, act late. Pisces enters reality through feeling, regulates through connection, understands internally, and only later acts. Pisces does not define reality first, they experience it first. So what others experience, I feel like everything turns into emotion instead of the issue. I end up comforting you instead of resolving anything. I don't know where the actual point went. You feel everything, but I don't know what you'll do about it. Pisces can feel deeply connected, empathetic, and intuitive, but also hard to ground. Okay, I've got 10 minutes. Not enough time. Extremely unfortunate. All right, so I'm going to have to finish this video later, but I'm going to go as long as I can, which I've got about 10 minutes. I can't figure out how to change my earbuds. Like, whenever I talk, my earbuds, like, lower the volume. I'm gonna have to figure out how to adjust that. Okay, so... Alright, so... Gosh darn it, I can't get this where I want it. I just don't have enough time to screw around like this. You can't just click on it on OBS. Like, you literally have to scroll down. It is like, why can't you just click on the image and then adjust it? I'm forever going to be, like, struggling with that. All right, so I am just going to go through some of my notes. I've got 10 minutes. I'm going to have to finish this video later. All right, so Gemini and Pisces, the Mercury-Jupiter inversion loop. All right, so Gemini and Pisces are mirrors across the same axis, but they invert. So Mercury is processing, cognition, and articulation. Jupiter is meaning, expansion, belief, and immersion. So both systems are dealing with the same two forces: information versus meaning, movement versus immersion. but they start in opposite places. So the core paradox, Gemini starts with Mercury, then reaches for Jupiter. Pisces starts with Jupiter, then reaches for Mercury, and both loop because neither anchors early. So Gemini loop is outward, inward, outward, outward masculine with Mercury and TE, engages, speaks, and organizes. Inner feminine, patterns, tracks, trajectories. Outer feminine, explores, expands, and samples. Inner masculine, attempts, identity. So the loop is engage, pattern, explore, repeat. Identity never stabilizes because Mercury keeps the system moving, Jupiter keeps expanding options. So Gemini gets stuck in endless processing and endless possibility. Pisces loop is inward, outward, inward. Inner feminine absorbs, merges, and dissolves with Jupiter and Neptune. Outer feminine harmonizes and regulates others. Inner masculine privately analyzes. Outer masculine forced action and withdrawal. So action late. So the loop is absorb, harmonize, withdrawal, and repeat. Boundaries never stabilize because Jupiter keeps expanding meaning, Mercury stays internal and late. So Pisces gets stuck in endless feeling, endless understanding. So the real connection, both systems fail at the same point. Inner masculine, identity, boundary, and self-definition, but for different reasons. Gemini, too much movement to anchor, too many options to choose. Identity comes after everything else. So they understand everything, but they do not actually stand on anything. So Pisces, too much absorption to separate, too much empathy to define self. Identity dissolves into others. So they feel everything, but they don't know where they separate between others. Why they both loop. So Mercury without anchoring equals fragmentation. Jupiter without anchoring is dissolution. So Gemini fragments identity. Pisces dissolves identity. Different expression, same structural problem. So how they experience each other. So Gemini experiences Pisces as deep but unclear, emotional but undefined, meaningful but hard to pin down. Why won't you just say what you mean? Pisces experience Gemini as sharp but detached, intelligent but inconsistent, expressive but ungrounded. Why do you keep moving instead of feeling? So Gemini speaks before feeling, Pisces feels before separating. Gemini explores before choosing, Pisces merges before defining. Gemini thinks externally, Pisces feels internally. Gemini lacks anchoring through movement, Pisces lacks anchoring through absorption. So this reintegration. So Gemini heals by building inner masculine earlier, choosing before exploring everything, holding values before adapting, stabilizing identity before expansion. Movement becomes directional. Pisces heals by building outer masculine earlier, setting boundaries before merging, acting before full overwhelm, and separating before absorbing everything. Feeling becomes contained. So Gemini and Pisces are not opposites, they are incomplete versions of the same circuit. Gemini, mind without anchor, Pisces, soul without boundary. And both are trying to reach self definition. Gemini gets lost in possibilities, Pisces gets lost in meaning. And both have to learn where they actually stand. All right, so I want to get into the full triad, 3 ways to miss anchoring. Gemini with Mercury leading, Jupiter destabilizing, Pisces, Jupiter leading, Mercury dissolving, Sagittarius, Jupiter testing, Mercury corrects late. So all 3 process reality without early identity anchoring. But how they fail is completely different. All right, so I'm going to bring in Sagittarius here. I'm going to have to either make a whole new video or splice these together. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but I do have to run. What page am I on? Let me remind myself what page I'm on. I didn't put the page numbers in here. Let me see how many pages I have left. I'm only on page 7 of 52. Alright, so I'm probably going to make this into another video. Alright, well, that's all I've got for now. I've gotta run. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next video.